Have you ever felt like anxiety takes over you without a clear reason? As if everything around you seems calm, but inside your heart is pounding, your thoughts are racing, and you can't find a clear way out. That feeling of emptiness, of not being able to fill your lungs, of sensing that something bad will happen even if you don't know exactly what it is. That's anxiety, and you're not alone. Today we're going to explore how the principles of Stoicism can help you calm that inner storm and find your balance again. Anxiety is a silent thief of the soul. It makes no noise. It doesn't arrive with big warnings, but it slips inside you. It steals your peace while you smile on the outside. It robs your rest while others sleep, and it suffocates you, even when you're surrounded by oxygen. We live in a society that demands immediate results, constant perfection, and absolute control. And in the middle of that pressure, it's easy to lose your way. But there is a philosophy that, despite everything, invites us to let go, to trust, and to breathe again. Stoicism doesn't promise a world without chaos, but it does train you so that chaos doesn't destroy your inner world. As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to us, but how we think about what happens to us that causes suffering. Today, I want to give you 10 Stoic teachings that not only calm anxiety, but can completely change the way you live in the world. Just one of these lessons has the power to transform your thinking forever. But before we begin, I invite you to do something simple yet deeply powerful. Go to the comments and write this phrase: "Today I choose not to let anxiety make decisions for me." Yes, write it. It's not just any phrase, it's a declaration. It's a firm stance against your own mind. It's your way of saying, you no longer have all the control. Because the moment you decide that anxiety can't speak louder than your reason, you begin to reclaim your power. You're creating a space between what you feel and what you choose to do. And right in that space, that's where your true freedom begins. Stay with me until the end of this episode. These 10 lessons are not just beautiful ideas, they're real tools designed to help you breathe clearly once again, to help you find your center, even when everything around you seems to be collapsing. Remember, anxiety is not your enemy. The real challenge is not becoming its prisoner, and that change begins today. Let's go. Lesson 1. Stop standing guard at the horizon. Have you ever found yourself caught in a mental whirlwind, going over and over what might happen tomorrow, next week, or even months from now? That is a silent but powerful trap that endlessly feeds anxiety, the habit of constantly living in the future. We become sentinels of what's to come, watching the horizon with fear, expecting storms that may never arrive. But still, they drench us from within with their fog of unease. Marcus Aurelius explained it brilliantly. Do not let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same reason that arms you against the present. And yet we forget this time and time again. We obsess over the what-ifs, believing that anticipating what might happen gives us power, when in truth, it robs us of the only thing we truly own, the present moment. We mistakenly believe that imagining the future is a smart way to prepare, but the reality is, it's just another excuse to postpone the present. We spend our lives scanning the horizon for warning signs, and in that effort, we stop seeing what's happening right here. An honest conversation, an unexpected laugh, or a steaming cup of coffee in our hands. Anxiety has a sneaky way of disguising itself as foresight. But healthy foresight doesn't steal your peace. Anxiety, on the other hand, convinces you that you must anticipate, prepare, and control every detail, or the world will fall apart. Can you imagine the exhaustion that creates? No one can live like that without eventually burning out. Epictetus taught that it's not the events that disturb us, but the way we interpret them. Think about this. You're at the beach watching the ocean. If your focus is only on the horizon, fearing a storm might come, you won't enjoy the sand beneath your feet or the sound of the waves. And if it rained, you get wet. But at least you live the moment instead of fearing it. Let me ask you a sincere question. How many hours of your life have you spent preparing for situations that never happened? How many times has anxiety stolen moments that were real, unfolding right in front of you? A very common example. You have an important conversation in a few days, and your mind has already rehearsed 10 different versions of how it might play out. And when that moment finally comes, nothing happens the way you imagined, and you end up suffering twice, once in your head and once in reality. Stoicism doesn't tell you not to plan. It invites you not to turn your plan into a prison. Yes, prepare, but don't trade today's peace for fear of what hasn't even arrived. Because the only thing you can truly control is your attitude in this exact moment. Everything else is a story that hasn't been written yet. So why keep standing guard at the horizon as if you could control the weather? What if, instead, you started tending to your inner peace, your center, no matter what the future brings? Because when the storm comes, the one who has cultivated calm is more likely to stay grounded. You don't need to be certain of what's coming. You only need to trust your ability to respond when the time comes. That is true freedom. That is strength. And that's the first step to silencing anxiety. Do you dare to stop looking outward and start looking inward? Lesson 2. You are not what you think. We often get trapped by our own thoughts, believing that each one defines who we are. When we feel anxious, those thoughts can become a relentless storm, so intense that we start confusing our identity with what we think. But the truth is different. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that observes, the mind that notices those thoughts arise, pass through, and fade away. They are not there to dictate who you are. Epictetus said it clearly. It's not the events that disturb us, but how we interpret them. Anxiety is born precisely when we allow negative thoughts to take the wheel. We fall into the trap of assuming that what we think is an unquestionable truth, and we merge with those ideas. But thoughts are not absolute truths. They are not facts. They are simply mental signals that arise in the mind, and it's our ability to observe them that gives us the power to choose how to respond. Imagine you are walking along a peaceful path surrounded by trees, with birds singing around you. Suddenly, an anxious thought arises. What if something goes wrong up ahead? In that moment, you have two choices. You can observe that thought like a passing cloud, or you can let that cloud darken your entire landscape. You decide. You are not that thought. You are the witness who chooses what to do with it. Seneca, another wise Stoic, also understood this truth. In his letters, he reflected on how humans are often swept away by their thoughts and emotions. He said, "Life was not given to us so we would be slaves to our thoughts, but so we would learn how to use them." If you let anxiety shape your thinking, you're allowing an external force to govern your internal world. But you have the power to say no. You have the ability to reject that identification with anxiety. Thoughts are not enemies. They are just thoughts, and it's our interpretation and our reaction to them that can turn them into a barrier. When anxiety shows up, the mind can start replaying all the worst-case scenarios like a stuck record. But that's just a pattern. It's not the truth, and if you can recognize that, you've already taken a crucial step toward inner freedom. Instead of feeling trapped by the belief that your thoughts are inevitable or uncontrollable, start creating distance from them. Don't let them define you. The next time an anxious thought arises, remember, it's just that, a thought. It's not a fact, and it's not a true description of you. You can let it pass without clinging to it. Anytime you find yourself caught in a sea of anxious thinking, repeat this to yourself with conviction. I am not what I think. Your thoughts are only one part of you, not your entirety, and you have the freedom to decide whether to hold on to them or let them go. If you observe yourself from a broader perspective, as a spectator who doesn't get carried away by the mental flow, you'll see that you are bigger, deeper than any thought that crosses your mind. Understanding that you are not your thoughts is freeing. It frees you from the need to identify with every idea that passes through your mind. The real power lies in that awareness that remains steady, even as thoughts come and go. In that space of observation, you can choose a calmer, more conscious response instead of getting swept up by mental impulses. Anxiety can feel like constant mental noise, but you are the one who decides whether to let that noise run your life. or to transform it into an opportunity to strengthen your inner world. Each time an anxious thought arises, remember, it's just a thought. And by not identifying with it as part of your essence, you will reclaim the peace you so deeply deserve. Lesson 3. Free yourself from perfectionism. Anxiety finds fertile ground in our constant need to achieve perfection. In a world that overwhelms us with unrealistic standards and unattainable expectations, that desire to do everything flawlessly becomes an endless source of tension. We often believe that if everything went perfectly, if we had complete control, then the anxiety would go away. But the truth is that the perfection we long for doesn't exist. What really fuels our anxiety is the deep fear of not being good enough, of not living up to that impossible ideal. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor and philosopher, left us with a powerful reflection. The perfection of an action lies not in its outcome, but in the effort with which it is performed. With these words, he reminds us of an essential truth. Life was not designed for everything to turn out flawlessly. We are not here to be infallible. We are here to learn, grow, and evolve. That pressure we put on ourselves to get everything right on the first try, to never make mistakes, is the very thing dragging us into stress and anxiety. When we fall into the trap of perfectionism, we're not only setting impossible goals for ourselves, we're also forgetting a fundamental truth. Life is uncertain by nature. The only time that truly belongs to us is the now. And clinging to the illusion of perfection disconnects us from the present. It keeps us from seeing the beauty of what already is, just as it is. Anxiety shows up when we place too much focus on how things should be, instead of accepting them as they are. If you live under the constant demand that everything must go without a hitch, you are sentencing yourself to a life of permanent tension, always searching for something to fix, even when nothing is truly wrong. It's an exhausting cycle that keeps you from enjoying or even recognizing your own achievements. Seneca also reflected on this idea when speaking about human nature. He said, "There is no such thing as a perfect person, and that shouldn't sadden us. The real tragedy is thinking we have to be. The problem is not making mistakes. The problem is believing we shouldn't. That endless pursuit of perfection can drown your peace and damage your emotional well-being. The more you cling to that unrealistic expectation, the more your anxiety grows." Have you stopped to think how you feel when you don't reach that self-imposed ideal? It's like a dense fog of frustration and doubt clouds your mind. The truth is, perfection isn't real. What truly matters is progress. Every step you take, including the stumbles, is part of your growth. Anxiety decreases significantly when we stop measuring our worth by perfection and start valuing our progress, no matter how small, even in the midst of failure. In your everyday life, think about the moments where you felt like you didn't meet your own expectations. Maybe it was at work, in a relationship, or in the way you present yourself to the world. Do you remember how you felt when you didn't match that perfect image you had projected? Most of the time, that anxiety comes from unrealistic expectations. But when you allow yourself to fail, you give yourself permission to be human. And in that permission, anxiety begins to loosen its grip. The key is understanding that your worth is not defined by perfection. Your ability to face challenges, learn from mistakes, and keep going, that is what truly defines you. Life is not a perfection test, and it is a journey of trial, error, and learning. Every time you let go of the need to be perfect, you take one more step toward inner peace and serenity. It's essential that you begin to see your imperfections as opportunities for growth, not as failures. Anxiety loses its power when you stop viewing your mistakes as threats and start seeing them as allies in your transformation. Remember, life is not a final result. It is a path. And each step, even the ones that don't go as planned, brings you closer to your most authentic self. So let go of the heavy burden that is perfection. Stop expecting everything to be flawless. Do your best with commitment and dedication without demanding the impossible from yourself. There is nothing wrong with being imperfect. What truly matters is the heart you put into what you do. True freedom, the peace you long for, comes when you give up the pressure to be perfect and decide to accept yourself as you are, with all your light and shadows. Perfection is not the destination. Growth and serenity are, and when you free your mind from that constant demand, you make room to live with more ease, clarity, and wholeness. Lesson 4. Reevaluate your standards. We live in an environment that constantly tells us what we should expect from ourselves. From career success to personal relationships, it seems there's always a bar we must surpass, an invisible standard that determines whether we're worthy or measuring up. This constant drive to meet standards, often imposed by others, becomes a steady source of anxiety because there's never a clear finish line. No matter how far you go, there always seems to be something else to achieve. And while it may look like a healthy pursuit of self-improvement, in reality, many of those ideals are nothing more than mirages pulling you away from what truly matters: your inner peace. Epictetus deeply understood this when he said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that defines your peace." This means that no matter how hard you try to meet the models others have drawn for you, if those goals aren't aligned with your own values and aspirations, anxiety will remain. The problem isn't having goals or standards. It's the disconnection that arises when we adopt external expectations that don't reflect who we really are. Your standards should come from your own principles, from what you value and long for, not from what your environment, family, friends, or society considers appropriate for you. Many times we find ourselves chasing a goal we didn't even choose. For example, we often hear that success is measured by how much money we make or how much recognition we receive. But pause for a moment and ask yourself, is that what I truly want? Is that the measure of my worth as a person? If you constantly question why you can't seem to reach these goals, maybe it's time to examine whether those objectives really reflect your true desires, or if you're just chasing someone else's expectations. Anxiety intensifies when you realize that despite all your efforts, you still can't live up to these imposed models. It's like running an endless race toward a destination you may not even want. Seneca reflected on this topic in his letters and left us with this illuminating thought: "You are not rich by what you possess, but by what you feel is enough." That idea reveals a powerful truth. True satisfaction doesn't come from what others consider valuable, but from your own sense of fulfillment. Genuine peace and inner freedom arise when you take the time to adjust your standards so they align with your nature, with what truly represents you. And how can you tell if you're following the right standards? The answer lies in how they make you feel. If they give you a sense of peace and alignment, they're probably in harmony with your essence. But if you constantly feel like you're falling short or never enough, you may be following a script that doesn't belong to you. Each time anxiety tightens its grip because you feel like you're not reaching a goal, take a moment to ask yourself, did I choose this goal? Is it aligned with the life I truly want to build? Or am I simply obeying an external expectation that has become a burden? Often the highest standards are not the ones that lead to serenity. On the contrary, they can push you into constant competition, an endless struggle to be more or better for no clear reason. Anxiety feeds on comparison and the belief that you should be different than you already are. What you truly need is to redefine your standards based on your own values, not on the judgments of the world around you. Think, for example, about a professional goal you've set, achieving a title, earning a certain recognition. If you don't achieve it, you feel like you've lost control. But what if, instead of clinging to that specific ideal, you adopted a more flexible, realistic vision, one that's more connected to who you really are? Most likely your anxiety would ease significantly, because you'd be guiding your steps based on what you choose, not what others expect. Revising your standards doesn't mean you're settling. It means you're allowing yourself to move forward with greater authenticity, in tune with your own process. If a goal causes you constant distress and makes you feel like you're never enough, maybe it's time to question it. It's not about lowering your dreams. It's about making them yours. About aligning what you do with what truly motivates you and gives your life meaning. Remember, inner peace is not achieved by fulfilling someone else's expectations. It's found when your own standards sync with who you really are and what you truly desire. And when you achieve that alignment, when your goals and path become your own, anxiety loses its grip. In its place comes a deep sense of calm, clarity, and genuine fulfillment. Lesson 5. Let go of the need for absolute control. One of the main triggers of anxiety is the urge to control every aspect of our lives. We live in an unpredictable environment, yet our mind insists on imposing strict order on everything: situations, people, the future. We want an explanation for every question, an immediate solution for every problem, and a flawless plan for every possible scenario. However, that urgency to maintain control over everything becomes an endless source of stress and anguish, because the truth is, we simply can't control everything. And in trying to do so, all we end up facing is frustration. Epictetus understood this brilliantly when he wrote, "Some things are up to us, others are not." This truth, as simple as it is powerful, lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy. If we focus our energy on what is within our control, our actions, attitudes, and thoughts, and accept what falls beyond our reach, we will find true freedom. Anxiety arises when we obsess over what we cannot change. When we try to force the natural course of events, we enter into conflict with life itself. And life by nature is unpredictable, messy, and ever-changing. No matter how much we want to, we will never be able to control every little detail. Trying to do so only intensifies the constant feeling of unease. Imagine for a moment that you're in a small boat, in the middle of a rough sea. If you try to control every wave, to predict every gust of wind, you'll end up exhausted. But if you choose to adapt to the movement of the sea, if you accept that some currents will take you on unexpected routes, then, and only then, will the anxiety begin to ease. This teaching invites us to release the fantasy of total control. Can you truly manage how others react? Can you guarantee the outcome of every situation? If you're honest with yourself, you know the answer is no. Many times anxiety stems precisely from that desperate need to control what's not in our hands. The future is uncertain, events are volatile, and that's not a bad thing. It's simply part of being human. Seneca also reflected on this truth when he wrote, "It's not that we have little time, but that we waste much of it." Anxiety often comes from persistent worry about things that haven't even happened yet, all the imagined scenarios we can't predict or handle. When we let go of that need for control, we free up the energy we used to spend on worrying and redirect it toward the only thing that's real, the present. This is where the concept of active acceptance comes in. It doesn't mean resignation or giving up. It means recognizing what we can't change and doing the best we can with what we can control. It doesn't mean we stop taking action. It means we act with full awareness without demanding that everything go exactly according to plan. Total control is nothing more than an illusion. And when we choose to let go of that illusion, anxiety loses its grip on us. Let's take a concrete example. You're waiting for an important response, maybe a job offer or a life-changing opportunity. If you obsess over every passing minute, every possibility that it might not go your way, you're only feeding your anxiety. But if you focus on what you can do today, on what's within your reach in this very moment, the anxiety starts to fade. You're choosing not to be controlled by the future. You're taking back your power by fully living in the present, without being consumed by what hasn't happened yet. Every time anxiety creeps in, remember this lesson. Letting go of total control doesn't mean being irresponsible or giving up. It means understanding that some things are simply beyond our reach. And that's okay. True serenity is born when we allow life to unfold naturally, trusting that while we may not be able to manage everything, we can choose how to respond to what happens. Anxiety fades when we stop fighting against the current of life, and instead learn to flow with it. Trying to control everything is an exhausting burden. But when we release it, we create space for calm, acceptance, and balance. Life, with all its uncertainty, becomes deeply beautiful. When we understand that the only thing truly within our control is how we choose to live it. Lesson 6. Embrace the now. In the fast pace of our daily routines, we often forget what's most essential: the present moment. We get consumed thinking about what has already happened or what might happen, and in doing so, we miss the opportunity to fully experience what's happening here and now. That disconnection between what we're living and what our mind projects, forward or backward, creates anxiety, because we get trapped between memories of the past and worries about the future, without enjoying the only thing we truly have: the present. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply when he said, "The present moment is the only thing you possess. It is your most valuable treasure." And it's true. If we're honest with ourselves, we'll notice that most of our worries and distress aren't about what's happening right now, but about things that already happened or scenarios that haven't yet come to pass. We forget that this exact moment is the only thing we truly have control over. Here in the present is where peace lives. When we give ourselves permission to stop and pay attention to what's happening, when we are fully immersed in what we're doing, anxiety begins to slowly fade. If you're having a conversation with someone, be fully present. Engage in that dialogue without thinking about what's coming next. If you're eating, savor every bite, notice its texture, its aroma. Being present creates a protective wall against anxiety, because your mind stops drifting between what was and what might be, and instead settles into the only truth: what's happening now. One of the most common causes of anxiety is that our mind is scattered in many directions at once. But when we choose to embrace the present moment, we put aside those worries that steal our peace. Imagine for a moment that instead of thinking about everything that could go wrong tomorrow, you choose to focus on what you're doing today in this very second. What would happen? The answer is clear. Anxiety weakens because you're directing your energy to the only thing you can actually live: this moment. Seneca also spoke about this when he wrote, "Don't let your mind become a prison built from memories and anticipations. Life doesn't live in the past or the future. Life happens now. Don't let the shadows of what was or what might be steal the light of what you have in this exact moment." A simple way to start living more grounded in the present is to take conscious pauses throughout the day. Take a deep breath. Look around you. Appreciate what you have. Maybe it's a warm cup of coffee in your hands, a shared smile, a walk beneath the open sky. Each moment is an opportunity to release anxiety, because when you're present, you're choosing calm over fear. The key is to practice again and again the return to the now. Each time you notice your mind drifting toward what you can no longer change or what hasn't happened yet, gently bring it back to the present moment. Do it without judgment, with kindness, but with the firm determination not to let anxiety take control. The present is the only place where you can take action, where you can breathe, where you can simply be. Within it lies all the power you need to regain your balance. That's where the peace you've been longing for begins. Lesson 7. Learn to let go of should. How many times at the end of the day have you caught yourself mentally reviewing everything you should have done? Maybe it was a project you left unfinished, a conversation you avoided, or a habit you couldn't maintain. The word should may seem harmless, but in reality, it's one of the most destructive things you can repeat to yourself. Because it installs a constant sense of inadequacy, it anchors you to what you didn't do, to what you are not, and to an idealized image of what you believe you ought to be. Epictetus explained it clearly when he taught, "Don't worry about what you cannot change. Focus on what you can do." Clinging to should denies you the ability to recognize your present, to act from what is possible now. Should places you in a mental state of chronic dissatisfaction, because there's always something more you could have done, but rarely enough to make you feel at peace. Now imagine, for a moment, that you let go of all the demands you've accumulated over the years. I should be more disciplined, I should go to the gym every day, I should be further ahead in my career. What would you feel if you could free yourself from that constant pressure? What if you decided to stop living under the shadow of who you think you should be? Letting go of should doesn't mean abandoning what matters. It means releasing that invisible weight that fuels anxiety and distances you from well-being. Most of those shoulds don't come from what you truly want. but from social, cultural, or even family expectations you've internalized without questioning. And that constant pressure doesn't bring you closer to happiness. It pushes you instead toward an impossible version of perfection. When you break away from that mindset, you give yourself permission to live more authentically, more humanly, because life is not an endless checklist of tasks to complete. It's a series of moments you can choose to experience with awareness and fullness. Seneca also touched on this idea when he wrote, "Life is not short. What we do is waste much of it chasing things we will never reach." That should we're talking about is precisely what causes us to waste time, distracting us from what really matters, keeping us from enjoying what we already have. Freeing yourself from that inner voice that keeps saying you should be different is an act of compassion toward yourself. It's the beginning of recognizing with honesty what you already are, what you've already achieved. It's letting go of an imaginary and impossible measuring stick. Learning to let go of should means accepting that not everything has to turn out perfectly to be valuable, that you don't need to meet every expectation in order to be worthy of peace and happiness. This lesson teaches you that it's okay not to accomplish everything you imagined, because what truly matters is how you choose to live this moment. When you release the weight of perfectionism and self-demands, anxiety loses its grip, and in its place appears the calm that comes from knowing you can live in peace with yourself. Stop judging yourself for what you didn't do. Start celebrating who you already are, because in that deep acceptance, in that conscious decision to be kind to yourself, is where true tranquility begins to bloom. Lesson 8. Transform your relationship with time. At its core, anxiety is a constant worry about what's to come. But in reality, anxiety is not the future itself. It's how we interpret it. We create a mental image of the future as a sequence of events beyond our control, and with that, we fill ourselves with fear about everything that could happen. However, the key to reducing anxiety isn't to dominate what's coming, but to transform our relationship with time. The Stoics taught us that the present is the only thing truly in our hands. Marcus Aurelius expressed it brilliantly when he said, "Time is a river that carries me, but I am the river." This idea radically changes the way we view time. Instead of seeing time as something external that drags us along or something we must chase, we begin to understand it as part of ourselves, something that flows with our consciousness. Anxiety shows up when we spend our lives trying to predict what will happen, or wishing to change what already occurred, but we forget to stop and live in the present moment. It's as if we get trapped in an in-between space, between what's already gone and what hasn't yet arrived. Becoming aware that the present is the only real moment we can live and experience is a powerful way to lighten anxiety. When we focus our attention on what we can do now, and stop constantly projecting ourselves into an uncertain future, our mind becomes free from the weight of what it cannot control. This doesn't mean we stop planning or having goals. It means we learn to release the need to control every detail of tomorrow. By doing so, we allow ourselves to more fully enjoy what is already happening, instead of fixating on what we still lack. Imagine deciding to stop carrying the weight of the future and choosing instead to center your energy on the moment in front of you. Each day then becomes an opportunity to give your best with what you have in that moment. And that, in the end, is the only thing that truly matters. With every step you take, the future begins to take shape, without needing you to control it in advance and without the anxiety that comes from living on edge about what might happen. Epictetus also said it clearly: the future belongs to those who have the courage to be present now. The future is not some distant, unreachable place. It is simply the natural result of what you choose to do today. That's why living fully in the present is the most powerful way to influence what's to come. When you free yourself from the fear of the unknown, you discover all the possibilities the present has to offer. And when you stop chasing an uncertain tomorrow, you begin to experience a deep peace, a tranquility that can only be born from living in the now. Because anxiety cannot survive in the present. It only exists in the illusion of what has not yet happened. Lesson 9. Learn to see chaos as an opportunity. Chaos is an inevitable part of life. And more often than not, anxiety feeds directly off our resistance to that disorder. our rejection of uncertainty and what we cannot control. However, the great Stoic thinkers didn't see chaos as a threat. They saw it as an opportunity to strengthen character, to exercise the mind, and to develop our virtues. True wisdom, according to them, lies in learning to move through chaos with serenity, without losing your center. Seneca expressed it clearly when he wrote, "It's not that we have too little time, but that we waste a great deal of it. And often we waste it by worrying about everything outside of our control." Instead of spending energy resisting difficulties, the Stoics invite us to transform every obstacle into an opportunity. Every complicated situation becomes a chance to grow, to learn, to train the mind, and to cultivate a more resilient attitude. Chaos isn't something we should fear or avoid at all costs. In fact, it's fertile ground for developing calm, clarity, and virtue. When anxiety takes over, we tend to interpret everything as an imminent catastrophe. But if we shift our perspective, we can start to see that what appears to be disorder is actually a space to apply what we've learned. In the midst of chaos, we have the perfect opportunity to practice patience, reinforce self-discipline, and test our ability to adapt. Instead of running from the unknown, we can learn to accept it, knowing that within uncertainty lies a valuable chance for personal growth. Don't see chaos as punishment. Remember Epictetus's teaching. It's not events themselves that disturb us, but the interpretations we place on them. So when life becomes unpredictable, when everything seems out of order, you have the power to choose how you respond. You can decide to see it not as a threat, but as a scenario in which you can grow and evolve. Every difficult moment is like a mental gym, a space where you can strengthen your inner peace. When you change your perspective, what once triggered anxiety transforms into an opportunity to practice calm. And that is where true progress happens. If you can find serenity within chaos, you'll realize that no matter how unstable the outside world may be, you always have control over how you choose to respond. And that control, your attitude, your focus, your inner strength, is what truly matters. Lesson 10. Dismantle the illusion of a fixed self. One of the main roots of anxiety is the belief that we must maintain a rigid version of ourselves. We think we have to act a certain way, meet specific expectations, or that we're condemned by our past. But the Stoics knew something essential. Our essence is not fixed. It's fluid, malleable, in constant motion. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus said it clearly. You cannot step into the same river twice. Life is a continuous flow, and our identity is not separate from that movement. When we cling to a static idea of who we are, we become stuck. We fill ourselves with anxiety trying to maintain an image that may no longer reflect who we truly are. It's like chaining ourselves to a version of the person we used to be, and when we can't meet those self-imposed expectations, we feel frustrated. But we are so much more than one single role, more than just one version. We are evolving beings capable of reinventing ourselves again and again. By no longer identifying with a limited and fixed idea of who we are, we open up to a more honest, broader perspective, one that sees us as ever-evolving beings. Epictetus said, "The only thing truly within your power is your attitude." And that attitude can be renewed, changed, and strengthened every day. Letting go of the idea that we are only one thing frees us from the pressure of appearing perfect. It allows us to breathe. It gives us space to grow, to fail, to begin again. Our ability to adapt, to change when circumstances require it, is a strength, not a weakness. Instead of fearing what we might become, we can choose the freedom to be who we decide to be, moment by moment. This shift in mindset can dissolve the anxiety that comes from rigidity and open us to a life that is more authentic, flexible, and peaceful. So next time anxiety takes hold of you, ask yourself, what if I could be something different? What if I wasn't trapped in just one way of being? You are not a fixed structure. You are like a river, flowing, adapting, moving forward, changing with your surroundings. And in that flexibility lies your true strength. There's something deeply transformative in accepting this. When you stop living as a slave to fear, when you dare to look anxiety in the eye without flinching, something inside you awakens. It's no longer just about surviving. It's about living with intention, with purpose, with presence. You discover that peace isn't waiting for you at the end of the road. It's in every conscious step you choose to take. And the most powerful truth of all, no one else can do it for you. Only you can make the decision to stop dragging yourself through mental noise. Only you can choose to release the weight that was never yours to carry. Only you can forgive yourself for not having all the answers yet. That is the real act of bravery. As a wise voice once said, anxiety isn't cured, it's understood. Maybe that voice lived through a chaos similar to yours, but chose to stay, to breathe, to face it, and from there to transform it. When you stop chasing absolute control and begin to cultivate inner calm, everything changes. You're no longer a leaf tossed by the wind. You are the strong tree that even when shaken, does not break. Anxiety only has power when you forget that you are bigger than your thoughts, that you can stop fighting and start understanding, that you can stop reacting and start responding, that you can stop giving up and instead reconnect with yourself. And if you're reading this now, it's no accident. You're here because deep down, something inside you has already shifted. You're waking up. You're ready to live differently. Subscribe to the podcast, hit the bell so you never miss an episode, and like this if the message resonated with something deep inside you. Here, we don't just share words, we create soul shelters. We remind each other that we're not alone. Tell us in the comments which lesson marked a before and after for you. Which phrase stuck with you, and share it with someone who might need it too. One word can calm a storm. One gesture can heal a tired mind. And one conscious community can change the world on one emotion at a time. You are part of that. See you in the next episode.